Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'm very pleased to speak on the Reserve Management Enhancement of iwi Management Plans Amendment Bill in the name of the Honourable Nanaia Mahuta. As the Chair of the Local Government and Environment Select Committee, Mr. Speaker, which considers the Resource Management Simplifying and Streamlining Amendment Bill, I'm very cognizant of the issues raised by this bill and the fact that we keep visiting the Resource Management Act to change it yet again. But let's step back for a moment and consider the progress that has already been made in the area of resource management. Stage one of our reforms saw this government streamline and simplify the RMA to ensure a better balance of environmental protection with economic growth. What it has achieved is good, positive outcomes for all concerned without incurring unnecessary delays and excessive costs. We removed the pervasive presence of the RMA in matters of low level of environmental significance by defining the activities that should not require consent or have a smoother pathway to approval. For example, a great deal of time and money was wasted in issuing 4,500 consents annually for trimming, pruning and removal of non-scheduled trees in a number of urban councils. The whole process was undertaken in order to simplify and streamline the RMA to make better progress without compromising the ideals of environmental protection. The reforms reinforce National's blue-green message that being pro-environment does not equate to being pro-red tape. So we've already achieved so much in reforming the Resource Management Act. Let's not look backwards, but to take a step forwards together. Mr. Speaker,
order, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
I seek leave for the member to have his full allotment of time restored if he cares to pick up the research notes for the bill currently being debated by the House.
That's not a point of order. That is not a point of order. And I'd say to the member this. The points of order are to be made about the order of the House. Points of order are not to be used to break up a member's speech. And that was, in my opinion, the Chair, a deliberate tactic to break up the member's speech. And I warn the member against it. Please let the speech flow. Call Chris Ockenvold.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I can appreciate what this bill is trying to achieve. The bill that we're speaking about and that I've been speaking about throughout. Mr. Speaker, I cannot be responsible for the lack of comprehension on the part of members opposite. They'll catch up in due time. The bill aims to strengthen the provisions by which iwi management plans influence regional and district plans and policies and elevate their status in the planning hierarchy. Under this proposed bill, regional councils would be required to recognise and provide for iwi management plans as opposed to take into account these plans as is legislated now. However, I believe it would be a retrograde step to introduce this legislation because there will be ample opportunity to debate these issues in Phase 2 of the reforms. One of the four objectives of the Phase 2 reforms is achieving efficient and improved participation of Māori in the resource management process. So I think it would be unhelpful to preempt these discussions or indeed limit the possibilities. So I'm certainly not out of sympathy with the proposal of the bill. I'm just looking at the process. I'm confident that through the process of the Phase 2 reforms, we'll ultimately have legislation which will ensure that Māori and iwi can be sufficiently involved in participating in the resource management process. In fact, I understand that the Ministry for the Environment is working on means to improve iwi involvement through iwi management plans in the RMA processes. There are three options on the table. Option one is to change the statutory weights of iwi management plans, or IMPSs. Increasing the policy weighting means the key content of and outcomes sought by IMPs can be given more consideration in RMA planning processes. Option two is definition and minimum requirements for IMPs. The option proposes identifying a list of matters that must be considered as a minimum requirement of an IMP. The matters, Mr. Speaker, should be identified during consultation with iwi Māori and ideally could include environmental outcomes sought, resource management issues of significance, significance, Maori customary values, and processes for meaningful engagement with local authorities. Option 3 is the lodgement and register of iwi management plans. The lodgement process would require the chief executive of the relevant authority to send a copy of a lodged IMP to the Ministry for the Environment or Te Puni Kukuri. There would be a new corresponding obligation on central government to keep and maintain a central register of IMPs. A register could be made publicly available to promote the sharing of information among iwi and hapu and to assist local authorities and resource consent applicants in locating IMPs. I'm looking forward to the cost-benefit analysis of each of the options, as I'm sure that we'll all be open to discussions on these options as we work through the process of finding the best solution to the situation. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to point out that there are, of course, some fundamental problems with this proposed bill. Elevating the status of iwi management plans to the level proposed in the bill would represent a significant step change in how non-statutory plans are considered under the RMA. The bill would elevate iwi management plans to a status similar to that of nationally important projects, Section 6, under Part 2 of the RMA. I don't think that that's the way forward. What it would mean is that iwi would have the power to influence or bring to a standstill district plans if they varied from iwi management plans. I think this would be unhelpful and it would hinder progress. These bill provisions were amended in 2004. It's a matter of balance. Previous decision makers were required to have regard to iwi management plans. In 2004, this changed to take into account. I believe this was and still is a sensible approach and a balanced approach, but I'm sure we can have further discussions during Phase 2 of the reforms. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, the National-led government is making a fantastic progress on RMA reforms. Phase 1 went a long way to reducing costs, uncertainty and delays that have frustrated New Zealand homeowners, small businesses and farmers for years. Phase 2 will address aquaculture, the new structure of the Environmental Protection Authority, freshwater management, urban design and infrastructure issues. The Resource Management Enhancement of iwi Management Plans Amendment Bill would in fact be an awkward distraction from this progress. Regardless of the fact that it has fundamental problems, we must remember that one of the 4 objectives of Phase 2 reforms is achieving efficient and improved participation of Māori in resource management process, and I look forward to being part of those discussions. We will therefore be voting against this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I call Charles Chauvel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our Resource Management Act can and should work better when it comes to involving